The open ocean is a world of its own, a vast, unforgiving wilderness that has swallowed countless secrets. For centuries, sailors have whispered tales of ships found drifting aimlessly, their crews gone, their stories lost to the waves, and these aren't just ghost stories for a campfire. They're documented events, official reports filled with baffling details and questions that have echoed through generations. These are the legends of ghost ships. What could possibly make an entire crew abandon a perfectly sound ship in the middle of the ocean? What horror could they have faced that made taking their chances in a tiny lifeboat seem like the better option? Today, we're investigating 5 of the most disturbing maritime mysteries that have haunted our history. From ships that wandered the Arctic for decades like a restless spirit, to the most infamous ghost ship of all time, whose central mystery may have just been solved. Kicking off our list is a quintessential and deeply unsettling ghost ship story, the SV Resolven. It's a tale that gets right to the heart of these mysteries: a sudden, baffling abandonment in the face of some unseen threat. The Resolven was a 143-ton wooden merchant brig, a workhorse of the sea, shipping timber and cod between Wales and Canada. In late August of 1884, the Resolven left Harbor Grace, Newfoundland, bound for Labrador. It was a standard trip, with Captain John James, a crew of 7, and 4 passengers. None of them knew they were sailing straight into a legend, just 2. Days later, the HMS Mallard, a British Royal Navy gunboat, noticed a brig sailing erratically off the coast of Newfoundland. It wasn't responding to signals, and as the Mallard drew closer, an unnerving silence seemed to hang over the other ship. No one was on deck. No one was at the helm. Something was very wrong. A boarding party was sent to investigate, and what they found has cemented the Resolven in the annals of maritime mysteries. The ship was utterly deserted. Yet, the scene wasn't one of chaos. It was one of eerie domestic normalcy. In the ship's galley, the fire was still lit, its embers glowing warmly. The lamps were lit. In the captain's cabin, the ship's logbook was open on the desk, with the last entry made just 6 hours earlier. Everything was in its place, except for the 11 people. The search only deepened the mystery. The Resolven was perfectly seaworthy. Besides a broken yard on the mast, the ship had only superficial damage, certainly nothing to warrant abandoning ship. Her cargo was intact, and so were the personal belongings of the crew and passengers. The only things missing were the people and the ship's lifeboat. So what happened in those 6 hours? The best guess centers on the one other thing spotted. Nearby, a large iceberg. Investigators believe the Resolven may have struck the iceberg, causing the yard to break. It's possible the crew, who were reportedly not used to the ice-filled waters, panicked. The terrifying sound of ice grinding against wood might have been enough to convince them the ship was sinking. In a rush of fear, they could have launched the lifeboat to escape a vessel they wrongly believed was doomed. If that's what happened, it was a fatal mistake. A small, overloaded lifeboat would have stood no chance in the North Atlantic. It would have been swamped in moments, taking all 11 souls with it. This theory explains the missing lifeboat and the minor damage, painting a tragic picture of panic and a deadly miscalculation. But is that the whole story? Would an experienced captain abandon his ship so rashly? The vessel wasn't taking on water. The galley fire was still going, which suggests the abandonment was incredibly fast. The crew of the HMS Mallard searched for hours, but found nothing. The Resolven was eventually towed to port, refitted, and put back into service. But the mystery of its original crew was never solved. No bodies, no wreckage, no answers. Just a ghost ship with a warm fire in its galley, a puzzle that earned it the nickname the Welsh Mary Celeste. Our 4th mystery takes us from the icy North Atlantic to the tropical South Pacific. proving that these hauntings aren't just a relic of the age of sail. This is the story of the MV Joyita, a ship whose name, ironically, means little jewel. In 1955, this little jewel became the Mary Celeste of the South Pacific. The Joyita was a 69-foot vessel with a history. Built as a luxury yacht for a Hollywood director, it served as a patrol boat in World War II before becoming a charter vessel. In the waters around Samoa, October 3, 1955. Under Captain Thomas Dusty Miller, the Joyita left Samoa for the Tokelau Islands, a 48-hour trip. Aboard were 25 people, including a government official, a doctor, and 2 children. Her cargo held medical supplies, food, and empty oil drums. The Joyita never arrived. A massive search and rescue operation was launched, scouring over 100,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No distress signal had been received. For 5 weeks, it was as if the ship and the 25 souls aboard had simply vanished. Then, on November 10th, a merchant ship spotted her. The Joyita was found adrift, over 600 miles off course, partially submerged and listing heavily. And she was completely empty. What the recovery party found was baffling. The bridge was smashed, windows were broken, and a makeshift awning was rigged on deck. The ship's clocks had all stopped at 10:25. The radio was tuned to the International Marine Distress Channel. But an investigation later found its wiring was faulty, giving it a range of only about 2 miles. They had been calling for help, but no one could hear them. The ship was heavily flooded, but it hadn't sunk. Her hull was lined with cork, and her cargo of empty oil drums gave her extra buoyancy, making her virtually unsinkable. And that right there is the horrifying heart of the Joyita mystery. Why would 25 people abandon a damaged but unsinkable ship for the terrifying uncertainty of the Pacific Ocean? The clues only made it weirder. The dinghy and all 3 life rafts were gone. And on the deck, they found a doctor's bag with bloody bandages inside. Someone had been injured. A formal inquiry concluded that a corroded pipe had likely fractured, flooding the bilges. The crew, unable to pump the water out or call for help, must have abandoned ship. But the final report couldn't explain why, famously concluding their fate was inexplicable. So, the theories began. Did Captain Miller panic, fearing the ship was sinking despite its design? That seems unlikely for an experienced mariner. The bloody bandages led to darker speculation. Was there a mutiny? A dispute gone wrong? Some whispered of pirates, or even an encounter with a foreign submarine. A persistent rumor involved Japanese fishermen, though that was never substantiated. Each theory has holes. The mystery isn't just that the people disappeared, but why they left a ship that would not sink. What happened to them in those tiny rafts? No one ever found a body or a piece of wreckage. The 25 people aboard the Joyita, including 2 children, were simply gone, leaving behind an awful, lingering question. Mark over the South Pacific. The case of the MV Joyita is one of the most baffling in modern maritime history. What do you think happened to the 25 souls aboard? Was it a simple case of panic, a mutiny, or something far more sinister? Leave a comment below about which theory you find most plausible. And as we continue our journey into the unknown, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. For our number 3 spot, we journey to the frozen expanse of the Arctic Circle, to a ship that didn't just get found abandoned once it chose to haunt the seas for nearly 4 decades. This is the legend of the SS Bachimo, the ghost ship of the Arctic. The Bachimo was a tough, steel-hulled cargo steamer that spent its life on a grueling but vital route, trading supplies for furs at Inuit settlements along Canada's northwest territories. But her life as a normal ship came to an abrupt end on October 1, 1931, loaded with a rich cargo of furs. The Bejimo was caught in an early winter storm and became trapped in the pack ice. The crew knew they were in trouble. Most were evacuated by air, but Captain Sidney Cornwell and 14 of his men remained, building a shelter on the ice to wait out the winter. On November 24th, a furious blizzard hit. For days, they hunkered down. When the storm finally broke, they emerged to an eerie sight. The Bejimo was gone. There was no hole in the ice, no sign of wreckage. They assumed the storm had broken her apart and sunk her. They were wrong. The Bejimo had other plans. A few days later, an Inuit hunter spotted her drifting 45 miles away. The crew tracked her down, but believing she'd never survive the winter. They unloaded the most valuable furs and abandoned her for good. And what happened next is one of the longest, strangest ghost stories you'll ever hear, freed from the ice. The unmanned Bejimo began a solitary journey that would last 38 years. Over the next 4 decades, she became an Arctic phantom. The sightings were numerous. In 1932, a dog sledder found her floating peacefully. In 1933, a group of Inupiat took shelter inside her for 10 days during a storm. Several attempts were made to salvage her, but each time the ship would elude capture, driven away by bad weather or impenetrable ice. She would appear and disappear with the seasons, a ghostly silhouette against the ice, always alone. She was seen in 1935, 1939, and again in 1962. The last confirmed sighting was in 1969. A full 38 years after her crew left her for dead, trapped in ice off the coast of Alaska. By then, she was more legend than ship. And then, nothing. After 1969, the Bejimo was never seen again. Did she finally sink? Or did she drift into some remote corner of the world where she remains a frozen tomb? In 2006, the Alaskan government launched a project to find her. But the ghost ship of the Arctic has held on to its secret. The story is haunting because it feels like the ship itself had a will to live. It wasn't just a derelict. It was a survivor, a lonely resident of the Arctic that simply wandered the top of the world until it vanished forever. For our number 2 spot, we leave the world of documented history and sail into pure, undiluted legend. This isn't a real ship of wood and steel, but a specter born from the fears of sailors themselves. It is the archetype of all ghost ships, a name that has terrified mariners for centuries. The Flying Dutchman. The legend began in the 17th century, the golden age of the Dutch East India Company. The story usually centers on a defiant captain, often named Hendrik van der Decken, who was trying to round the treacherous Cape of Good Hope in a terrible storm. His crew begged him to turn back, but the proud captain swore an oath, shaking his fist at the heavens, that he would round the Cape, even if he had to sail until Judgment Day. As the legend goes, his curse was heard. Van der Decken and his crew were condemned to do just that. His ship became a spectral vessel, doomed to sail the oceans for eternity, never making port. The Flying Dutchman became a phantom, its crew of ghosts forced to endlessly man their cursed vessel. To see the Dutchman became the ultimate bad omen. It was said to appear glowing with an eerie light, signaling imminent disaster. Legends claimed its crew would try to pass letters to other ships' letters addressed to people who had been dead for centuries. To accept them was to invite doom upon your own crew. But is this just a sailor's yarn? What makes the legend so powerful are the reported sightings from credible people over hundreds of years. The most famous was recorded on July 11, 1881, by Prince George of Wales, the future King George V of England. While on the HMS Bacchante, he and 12 others saw what he described in his log as a strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow. When they investigated, there was no trace of any vessel. The next day, the seaman who first reported the light tragically fell from a mast to his death. cementing the ship's deadly curse. Of course, science has a likely explanation: a complex mirage known as a fata morgana. This optical illusion, caused by light bending through different air temperatures, can make ships far over the horizon appear to float in the air, distorted and shimmering like a ghost. But for centuries of sailors, the Flying Dutchman was more than a trick of the light. It was a manifestation of all their fears of nature's power, of being lost forever, and of defying the gods. It is the ultimate ghost ship, a crew eternally present and forever lost. And now, we arrive at number 1. The case that is, without a doubt, the most famous and profoundly mystifying ghost ship story in history. Its name has become a byword for unexplained desertion. This is the story of the Mary Celeste. In the fall of 1872, the brigantine Mary Celeste was in New York, preparing for a journey to Genoa, Italy. Her captain was Benjamin Briggs, a respected, experienced mariner. He was joined by his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, and a hand-picked crew of 7. On November 7, 1872, the Mary Celeste sailed out of New York Harbor and into legend. On December 4th, the crew of another ship, the Dei Gratia, spotted the Mary Celeste sailing erratically 400 miles east of the Azores. After getting no response to their signals, they sent a boarding party. The scene they found was perplexing. The ship was completely deserted. All 10 people, Captain Briggs, his family, and his crew were gone. Now, you've probably heard stories that the meals were still warm on the table, but the truth is, that's a myth. The ship was not in perfect condition either. While it was seaworthy, the crew of the Dei Gratia found over 3 feet of water. In the hold, one of the ship's pumps had been disassembled, and charts were scattered about. The ship's log was found, and its final entry was dated 10 days earlier. From that point, the Mary Celeste had sailed another 400 nautical miles with no one at the helm. The personal belongings of the crew were untouched. The cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was almost all there. The only things missing from the ship were the 10 people, the sextant, the chronometer, and the single lifeboat. It was as if they had decided to get into a small boat in the middle of the Atlantic for some reason, and row away from a perfectly good ship. For over 150 years, the question has been, why? The theories have been endless, from pirates to sea monsters to alien abduction. The most plausible scientific theory has always centered on the cargo. Of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol, 9 were found empty. These 9 happened to be made of red oak, which is more porous than the white oak used for the others. It's possible they leaked, filling the hold with volatile alcohol vapor. Fearing an imminent explosion, Captain Briggs may have ordered everyone into the lifeboat as a precaution, perhaps intending to trail the ship by a tow rope until the fumes cleared. If that rope snapped, the tiny lifeboat would have been lost at sea. For over 150 years, that's where the story ended, a cold case, a perfect mystery. Until now, in a stunning development from just this year, 2025, the mystery may have finally been cracked. Researchers have reportedly discovered the remnants of the Mary Celeste's lifeboat washed ashore on a small, uninhabited islet in the Azores. Forensic analysis of the wreckage and the surrounding area suggests evidence of a sudden, no-grade explosive event, consistent with an alcohol vapor ignition that would have been terrifying but not enough to destroy the ship. The evidence also points to the heartbreaking conclusion that the 10 occupants survived the initial event and made it to the island, only to be stranded with no hope of rescue. We will likely never know their final, desperate moments. The ship itself met its end in 1885, when its last captain deliberately wrecked it off the coast of Haiti in an insurance fraud scheme. But this new discovery provides a tragic, tangible end to a story that has been pure speculation for a century and a half. It seems the greatest ghost ship mystery of all time is, perhaps, A ghost story no more. From the icy grip of the Arctic to the deceptive waters of the South Pacific. The stories of these ghost ships echo across time. They are stark reminders of the immense and often terrifying power of the ocean, a realm that still holds so many secrets. While modern science may have finally brought a tragic piece to the story of the Mary Celeste, the questions surrounding the resolve in the Joyita and the lonely Beijimo remain. The truth for them is likely lost forever, swallowed by the waves and locked in the silence of these spectral ships. They sail on in our collective imagination, eternal symbols of the mysteries that lie just beyond the horizon. The ocean gives up its secrets slowly. And some, it may never give up at all. If you found these stories as haunting as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Ring that notification bell so you never miss an update. Which of these ghost ship mysteries do you find the most disturbing, especially now that the Mary Celeste might be solved? Let us know in the comments below.